Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio. Today, we're going to be talking about glamping and really super awesome tents. We're not talking about the little tents that we go out, camping with. We're talking about those awesome glamping tents, but tents like you could have your own jacuzzi, your own kitchen. Seriously, like you want your own butler if you have these tents. They're so awesome. We're excited to bring Zane Zway on. He is from Exclusive Tents. He's joining us here on the show, and I encourage you to go to their website, exclusivetents.com. And we love the name too, because it's like you guys don't just create tents that are like mass produced. You're doing like, customized tents for resorts, all kinds of resorts around the world. So welcome, Zane. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. So you're in Tucson, right?
That's correct. I'm sitting here in Tucson, Arizona.
Well, you're like us. You never know where you might be. But
yeah.
Well, we met you, in Tucson area. And now today we're in Albany, Oregon, but not for long. So, but just it's a place every couple of weeks, I think, for us. But you've been very global as a family. Did the tents come from your background in South Africa?
Yeah, they did actually. That's actually kind of the origin story of how Exclusive Tents got started, and so how that began is my father is the CEO and owner of the company, and he used to be a game warden in the Kruger National Park, and we lived in a remote section of it called Shangoni, which was on the eastern part of the park, but no tourism or anything like that. And he specialized in anti-poaching. He would actually go undercover and go in the black market and buy up ivory and things like that to find out who was selling it and who's poaching it, and kind of put two and two together. Find out who's poaching his elephants on.
Wow.
And so he specialized in that, and that actually got us in a bit of got us as a family in a bit of trouble because the police were involved in that, and some of the park people were. So that's actually how we moved out of the Kruger Park and headed towards the United States. And from Minnesota, so we were actually able to get into the country pretty easily.
Right.
And because of that, we wound up here in Tucson, Arizona. And he was actually blacklisted from any of the national parks for a long time. So he couldn't get another job as a game warden.
Wow.
And right. And so, that plan kind of fell apart, and he started doing things like driving yellow cab and working Circle Ks, and all the while trying to start his own little companies. And it would start off, selling little South African products. We're always trying to, promote South African culture. So it'd be like barbecue stuff, tongs.
Braai. A lekker braai, ek say.
Yeah, braai.
Cool.
So, just a lot of, the things you'd see, braai equipment, basically. And he eventually got a job with another family company. And they, sold, kind of camping products and outdoor products and things like that. And he went and got a job with them eventually. And after a couple years, things went a little bit south with that family. And the boss of that company actually fired Dad right in front of Anders and I when we were at work with him. So that was a interesting day.
Wow.
And at that point, Mom and Dad had got divorced. So in Dad's situation, he had a mortgage to pay, and so had to figure something out real quick. And with $100 in his pocket, he started his own company trying to sell a lot of this, similar South African products. And when I turned 14, I started working with him in that company. And that was, we sold, our main bread and butter in that company was potjie pots. You guys know
potjie kos. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were the big potjie pot company for the United States. And that's what we did for years.
Wow. I didn't know that about your background. And to me, this is a success story of entrepreneurism of, it's funny because we're talking about, I always, worked for Nancy in South Africa, with us traveling there. And we did every corner of Kruger Park.
Lived in the bush. Kicked out of the country.
Yeah, because she had a magazine. Then on her own, it was time to bail. So we all know those stories. But but it
comes Winnie. That's what we call it.
But I love that story. I mean, even when we got to this country, we we couldn't get the money out. Like, so we started, we had what, how much did 4,000 in our pocket when we arrived to this country?
4,000 out, but by the time you got it, there wasn't nearly 4,000 there.
No.
It was a whole bunch of taxes and different things had to go there, and then here's your $80. Thank you.
But in a week, we both had jobs. We had a car. Nancy sewed clothes. We didn't, we started from, scratch, and now we're here, and it's that perseverance that I think is so important. But poikikos, I want to go back to poikikos and poikipots, what you're talking about. So those are from South Africa. It's like a Dutch oven. Sometimes you put it on the top, but I remember like people digging it underground. But it's like a Dutch oven, right? For America.
Yeah, basically it's like I guess Americans would think of it as, it's very similar to like a witch's cauldron, right?
Yeah, there we go.
That's a great that was one of our big clienteles. Was a lot of the new age industry was really into it. Not just them, but they were a large part of it. I mean,
that's fun.
The sangomas and tokoloshes get together. Really. All right. So now you go from poikikos pots to these amazing tents, which I mean, I, as a kid, grew up, in tents of going to game parks in Kenya, South Africa, all over, and you would sleep in these amazing tents. And it was this, I think, just an amazing experience in that you are comfortable, right? And I think right now, for those who aren't like ready to sleep out on, on a sleeping bag in the dirt, this is a really good way to be connected to nature, right? And kind of have that experience. And from what I know from people that start glamping, eventually they will actually, for a family for the first time, right? It's a way to get kids involved. And it's kind of that step into, okay, some people go, all right, now I'm ready for the dirt. But some people, we just want luxury all the time.
Yeah. And it's its own experience too. I mean, it is a tent, but like you said, it's almost like, it's like being in a fabric house that is just more in tune with nature. You're just more a part of the outside, but you're comfortable, and so that's really important when you're out there in a beautiful natural setting and there's wildlife, and you want to be closer to it. You don't want to be locked away in a cabin, and if there's a thunderstorm or something, you want to have a little bit of that, and that's in a canvas tent, that's pretty special. And you would know that. You guys have had that experience.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It was fun. I was watching Anders, your brother, on a video. You guys make cool videos. And he was showing about, how they are, the structure and how strong they are. So for some of it got all technical that I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But for people who are purchasing the tents and ordering them from you, because these are all, pretty much customized. I know you have specific designs, but what was interesting to me was how you talk about thunderstorms, how you do have like the windows, how they're, double insulated basically. And then the canvas itself is not that, we all know what it's like to be in a tent and then the windstorm comes and the tent will pick you up and take you flying. You know what I mean? So this is like military grade canvas, right?
Oh yeah. It's a 550 GSM, which grams per square meter, but it's a polyester blend. It's not like that old cotton canvas, it's got polyester woven in there. So, and the reason for that is it's a lot better at dealing with things like mildew and mold and things, that are kind of an issue with cotton.
Okay.
So
does it help with rain in regards to repelling the rain off of the tent?
Oh yeah. The canvas it's 100% waterproof, and but our canvas tents, they actually have multiple roofs. It's not just like a canvas tent roof like that. It's actually a multi-layer system, and the only part of the roof that's canvas is attached to the body, which hangs beneath a frame. So if you imagine like got your frame set up and there's some legs coming down, the canvas body will actually hang underneath that frame, and it'll tension up under the frame. And there's some square tubing and some sleeves at the bottom of the tent that bolt into the deck. And above the frame is a really heavy duty PVC rain fly. So it's like this really heavy duty tarp, really thick stuff in it. It's also 100% waterproof. I mean, both layers are, but this is a really good layer to protect the tent from weather, even though the tent itself is 100% weatherproof. We just add that extra protection. And above that is a shade fly. And that is just to protect the PVC from, harsh UV and things like that, because the PVC is a little bit sensitive to UV. So we put a shade fly over. And it also, doing that also, softens the sounds of the elements. So if you're having a really hard rain, it's not going to be like deafening inside of the tent. It's going to soften it. So it's just this pleasant kind of pattering sound.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then on the inside of the, there's, I'm sure you've seen some of the photos of the interiors. There's that beautiful, like kind of billowing sheet on the inside.
Yeah.
And that's called a liner. And so with all that together, you've got 4 layers of roofing. And at the apex, there's about 2 feet of space, which really helps a lot with, killing any sort of baking effect. It's a really great form of airspace insulation just in that design alone. So
Dude,
the
I want to
tent
live
is,
in one. Can we live?
you can.
I was saying that the first thing I was going through all your images, and I'm like, dude, I want to live in
I
one.
want
I was
that
like,
one.
Nancy, come look. And she goes, I want to live in one.
Yeah.
Is it sturdy enough to do that? I mean, I've got to imagine it's got to be with like a resort, especially having multiple guests staying in one.
Oh, absolutely. My dad, he actually lives in one in Belize for the past 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
He's got, he's kind of tucked under a rainforest canopy, but his has gotten hit by a Category 2 hurricane.
Whoa.
So, I mean, they are stout tents, and depending on where they're being set up or who we're making them for, we're going to engineer them specifically to deal with the weather that they're dealing with. So, I mean, we'll have these things, rated up towards up over 140 miles an hour for wind if we need to.
Wow.
And engineer the heck.
Well, because I'm
Pretty
thinking
cool.
about a lot of tropical islands have got to call you, like,
Mhm.
Costa Rica, and then like you've got, Bahamas, all of those places. Your first thing you think about is staying is like, ooh, I want to be in a tent on the beach, right? And
Yeah.
then they're the ones who get
Mm.
nailed a lot with hurricanes. So you go for the hurricane force, but one thing I was reading too is you can actually take them down, and if you really need to, right? If like, okay, I really want to protect things, get the furniture wherever you need to store it, but you could take the tents down.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do need, you need to watch the weather, and you'll need a couple days notice. So if a hurricane's coming and you want to do that, give yourself a couple of days it's the tent's going to pull down in like a day, and then you got to get the furniture out of there, but it's best to have a little time. So that's a really, really good up to it. And to your point about Costa Rica, we actually just finished a project there, 2 projects. One of them is private, but we just had a client open a new resort there called Wavefront Tents. So you can actually go and stay in an exclusive tent right on the beach in Costa Rica dealing with that
Oh,
stuff.
how cool.
Come on, Nancy.
I know, that sounds good.
I love your parts tour goes to Costa Rica.
Hey, why not?
I'm good for, hey, I'm
Mhm.
digging this. You said private though. So does that mean people are doing this for their own private estate? Like it's like, here's my tent on my mansion land, or?
No, this is like that particular private project was a guy's vacation home. He bought about 4 of these tents, same as this one, which is called a Shaloa, I believe. Yeah. And he set them up as like a vacation destination. So he actually bought, a piece of beachfront property, actually pretty close to the Wavefront Tents. And that's where he and his family and his friends go on vacation. And they've got 4 of them set up there, plus with like a kitchen building and things like that. And
wow.
it's a getaway. But yeah, to circle back to being able to live in them, you absolutely can, and comfortably. I don't think you'd be any less comfortable doing so, especially if you add all the amenities. If you wanted to have air conditioning and things like that, you can do that. It's really how you build out the rest of the infrastructure once you get your tent.
Now I know most ladies are going to ask immediately, what about the potty room?
Yeah, the bathroom.
Do you have to have that separate, or can you have one in a tent?
Yeah, you can go either way. I mean, having one inside the tent is, you sort of have to be clever about your layout. And you can, a lot of people partition it off. Like a really common way to add like a restroom kind of privacy is what people will do quite often is they'll set up a bed with a really big headboard. You ever seen one of those gigantic headboards? And they'll set it up as like, maybe your restroom, you've got a sink on the other side of that in the restroom, and, a little shower if you want. And some people don't want to do that. So they'll build a separate, like, restroom building or tent or something like that. The tents are probably a little bit big to be totally dedicated to a bathroom or a restroom. But yeah, a lot of people do integrate them inside. And also, another thing that people do inside of these tents is they actually do put up drywall sometimes inside of them. So you can actually have, a drywall inside. It's kind of like if you imagine the tent just goes over the drywall once you set it up. Do that and have a proper door to go through, or maybe you go outside the tent and walk around the other side and, enter into the restroom. That's one way you can do it. So it really depends on the clients and what they want to do with the restroom. But yeah, absolutely.
I remember walking to the restroom from a tent in South Africa, and there was a whole lot of animal noises that followed you.
Yeah.
And then
little hyenas and a little lion growl over here, and you're like,
oh, just so little. Yeah, you put the little light.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So it's fun.
What do you do any of the national parks out here, or any of the like national forests? Because I know a lot of people go, out in the wilderness areas, and it's pretty primitive camping, but there will be some tents out there. There are some like primitive camping, you know what I mean? And you have to reserve all of that. Have you done any of that kind of thing?
We have not done it in the United States yet, but we're actually, I have to keep it a little bit hush hush, but we are working on some national parks right now. We've got some big going in. Cool. And so maybe over the course of the next 6 months to a year, you'd see something popping up near some national parks that you really know about. I'll say, kind of close to the vicinity of, let's see, Charlottesville and Atlanta and Nashville, Tennessee.
Awesome.
And stuff maybe kind of going close to Shenandoah, and we're working on a bunch of stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I mean, you could see these everywhere, right, Nancy? As we travel, like you think about all the places we have been and going, okay, some parks don't have the facilities, and I also look at some communities that have things going, but they maybe not have a lot of lodging yet for the visitors. And, so a lot of smaller communities have all these natural areas. And sometimes I think like this would be kind of I would say more of an environmentally friendly kind of way of starting to bring a lodging style into a community versus here, we're going to put a skyscraper. And, there's always that fight about what's going on in a natural area where it's suddenly, we're going to put a hotel in, and here comes the tent, it's massive and it doesn't really go with nature. And I think that's what's so great about your tents is that it automatically goes with nature. Does that kind of go from your dad's background of being a park ranger, knowing what happens with weather, knowing how to really kind of build these according to that specific environment?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the fundamentals of our business is, coming from conservation. And, we do get a lot of projects where, conservation is a big deal, especially like on an island or something like that, where, you've heard of these islands where people lease them for, maybe like 10, 20 years or something, and they can run a resort or something, but then they have to rehab the land. Situations like that. And the beautiful thing about, doing something like one of these tents is that if you're doing them up on elevated platforms, like your elevated decks and things like that, and, it's time to pull all the infrastructure out of there, all you've got left over is a couple of post holes from the deck. There's no concrete slabs. There's no ruins from big brick and mortar buildings. All the evidence is just out of there. And what's even better, my dad did something real clever with his property, and I've seen, other people do it before, is they don't chop down the trees if you're inside of a canopy. You actually just wrap your deck around the trees and have them as a feature on.
Cool.
Nice.
Make your deck part of your living space and include, those features of the land, rather than just chopping it all down.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's been tricky in the United States, though. Like things are starting to blow up here as far as the glamping industry now, and I think people are kind of starting to wrap their heads around it. But it's really tricky for people to wrap their mind around, being that comfortable and that secure, and that it's more than just a tent. It's not like a camping tent. And that's a real strange thing for people to wrap their minds around sometimes, especially if they've never been in one or never seen one. I think it's a lot rougher than maybe it actually is.
I mean, we've stayed in, tents, like I was saying, that's kind of, there's just this awesome element to it, and it's just natural. It feels natural when you're out there, and you can make a margarita if you want to. You can have a wet bar in the
Yeah, you
tent.
can.
I mean, listen, that'll calm you right down. It's all good,
You
you
should,
know,
you should
you
have
know.
one.
Yeah, you can do what you, and I love that that concept of being outside and making your deck part of your living space, because I
Yes.
think especially now after COVID, everybody realizes, your dog wants to take a walk for a reason. We need outdoors. We need to breathe and have fresh air. Nancy and I can't stand like not being outside. I mean, it's
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
raining and cold, we haven't done very well in those climates. And we're just like, we need outside. We want outside now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So once you do that, it's really good for our bodies. I mean, during COVID, everyone's talking about vitamin D, and I'm like, don't take it, go outside. You know what I mean? So
And yeah, that's the truth. And as far as keeping your health up and your immune system up, I mean, part of that is getting out and being active, and eating well, but part of that is definitely being active and moving your body, and it's hard to do that inside, with a stale air inside your house and things like that. So
yeah.
yeah.
What about your tents being used? I know, I understand it's like a construction thing, but so like let's actually go backtrack on that. Let's talk about the fact of actually manufacturing them,
Mhm.
because there's, okay, so you've got a factory kind of thing going on, but they're exclusive. So these are customized, right? So even if you have specific designs, you're still customizing according to where they're going. So these are hands-on. It's not like, when you think about a plate coming out of a big box store, I almost said the word, but I didn't. But you come out, you buy some dishes, right? And they're just running through like a manufacturing thing, hands-on, not so much, versus buying a plate, a set of plates from a potter or a ceramic artist. That's something really special.
Right.
So the actual production process, is that something more hands-on than everything's just kind of set up and running like a mill kind of thing?
Yeah, no, we don't have automated anything. I mean, what we have is our partner, the guy who crafts our tents. We're actually a two-family business. So
Okay.
Dad and Anderson and I and his wife Angelica, we're this Zway side of the business, and we handle all the marketing. And then there's the Marie family, which is a guy named Johan and his son, and their family members, and they craft the tents, and they're
Okay.
handmade. So they've got a farm in South Africa, and that's where our factory is. But I mean, the truth of it is when people make an order, we've got some very skilled folks actually hand stitching these tents together, and they are custom made. So if I'm making a tent for you and you're setting it up in Costa Rica, you'll have our standard shapes and designs, and we lay it out that way. So, you can pick out how much space you want, and you can kind of visualize the layout. And so, that kind of takes that out of the equation. But from there, you're going to be, picking out how you want to do your windows and doors, and, whether you want.
God.
Yeah. And, we'll do them ourselves, the classic zip up, roll up doors, and come standard with some, PVC windows, so you can actually have a clear view out, and still have a barrier from the weather. But a lot of people will also opt to get like wooden French doors instead of like a zip up roll up, and do glass windows and things like that. So we'll make their tent with blank panels for those places, and then they'll go pick out their favorite French door or windows
Wow.
local, and integrate them into the tent. But also, comes down to, we also pick out the steel frames depending on where you go to. So if you're setting up close to the ocean, we're going to do it in stainless steel. If you're setting up here in Tucson, Arizona, it's dry and mild, so we're going to use a mild steel, which is going to make a more cost-effective tent. And then you get to pick out colors, and a lot of people will pick out sand colors or olive green colors, stuff that kind of blends into the environment. but we do all sorts of colors, and you have a bright pink tent if you wanted to.
Right
I was
on.
just gonna say hot pink.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, you got a flag to fly, you fly it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
The thing too, we look at all these communities that are creating, right now we have, I feel like we're in the world of little boxes on the hillside, all looking the same. And as we travel across the country, we see this, I'm going to call it the other epidemic. And I understand this makes it more cost-effective housing, but everyone's got the same thing. You're not allowed to do this to your yard. Everybody has to be the same. And it's kind of, I just,
Boring.
yeah.
You're kind of getting into a really interesting subject there is a lot of people like our tents, when they've got property is they're considered a temporary structure, but they behave as a permanent structure. And, a lot of people can get away with building them in certain places where you wouldn't normally be able to have a brick and mortar structure because it's considered a temporary structure. So that's kind of places like that.
So kind of like communes and, retreats, because a lot of people, there's desert communities like out in, New Mexico, where they're doing the big earth ships and things like that, which are super cool, right? And then there's people with tree houses, but if you're into tents, and you want that kind of feeling, you could have a community of houses.
Yeah,
houses,
absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you wanted to be like kind of, especially like writers, and I think about this as like artistic retreats can use these. I mean, it's not, there's a nature side, but if you're going to be creative, a lot of times being in a tent and being closer to nature helps creativity. So
yeah, it provides, there's sort of an it factor about an environment like that, just very
So
being.
what's the lifespan of a tent?
Well, if one of these things are maintained very well, I mean, we fully expect 20 plus years out of it permanently. And it's never like, you set up one of these tents and you intend to live in it, you can definitely expect some decades out of it. And it's never like, if something were to go on your tent, it's never like you'd have to replace the whole thing. I mean, you might have to replace the shade fly because it's been taking a beating from the sun, but that layer was sacrificial. And so you would expect to switch that out after maybe a decade or something, and you order up a new one from us and we send it to you and you put it on your tent. Or, on a big tent like this, parts of the body, it's not just one body, it's components that hang from the frame and then they marry together with this really big industrial Velcro. So if something happens to this part of the tent, or it's degraded so badly, but it's only this part, you can just replace this part of the tent and we'll ship it right to you.
Oh, wow. So,
yeah.
So do you, okay, you're talking about shipping parts and things out, which is great. Does that mean when someone orders a tent and you go through, this is what I want, and you develop it, does anybody go to the resort to see, I'm just going to say resort for now, to the resort to see what the weather's like? Or is it just really a lot of conversation and maybe Zoom in Skype calls and stuff? Or do you help them actually put it together?
It's all of that, to be honest. It depends on the, if, we've had clients who want us to come out and do a site evaluation, and we do offer that service. I mean, where we go actually look at the land and, give them our thoughts and
travel. Yay.
Yeah. My buddy Brian and I are leaving this Thursday for Texas to do just that. We're going to go. A client of ours is getting their tent in, and we're going to help them set it up and get a lot of photos of it and be hands-on that way.
Cool.
But yeah, at the same time too, it's most of our clients will just we'll hash it out over video like this and phone calls, and the tent does come with great setup instructions, and quite often they're hiring an architect or a contractor on their end to do the decking and everything like that. So we interface with them a lot, and quite often the contractor will be setting up the tent. And then in other situations, maybe they've ordered a large order. Maybe we're doing like resorts and they've ordered 12 or 20 tents or something like that. And what we'll do is, in that situation, we'll fly out maybe two of us, and we'll meet with their construction crew, and we'll teach those guys how to set up maybe 2 tents, and then they're qualified to do the rest of them.
Wow. So this could
Nice.
become like a little franchise thing going around the world with all these construction people knowing, you know what I mean? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my mind just went there. I'm like, dude, you
Yeah.
could have like construction people knowing how to do it. It's like Microsoft has their, certified Microsoft people.
Oh
You know?
yeah. There's totally been times like, if we really liked the crew we worked with in a particular country, say Costa Rica, for instance, and we thought their guys were really good and competent, and we get another project there maybe a year or a couple of months later, we'll actually reach out to that crew and say, hey, do you guys want to get in on this? We'll recommend them as the setup crew.
Wow.
It just depends. It's kind of circumstantial, but yeah, we do everything we can like that.
That's awesome. So this is like,
nice.
empowering jobs around the world, really. When you look about, the actual crafting of the tents and then construction around the world, and then it's helping tourism on a light-footed. I love the environmental footprint, the lack of footprint, I should say, and how nice it is for the land. But Nancy, before we started recording this, you were talking about restaurants.
Yeah, because, with the COVID thing and people, once you've got your diners outside, if it, even right now it's temporary for a lot of restaurants, they're looking at this added space and then wanting to make it nice no matter what the weather, or whether it's in the daytime or in the evening. And so I think there's a huge market for that right now, because once you've got permission to have your diners outside, why not use it?
Exactly. And we did think of that, as we were all going through this COVID thing. And we put together a collection of tents called our Petite Collection. And they're smaller tents. I mean, I think they go anywhere from 50 square feet up to 100, 150 square feet, depending on what you're looking at. But they're designed to be private spaces for the front of a restaurant, or just a beachfront or a day room or something like that. But a place where you could easily fit a little dinner party. And and it would be, it's a beautiful piece of eye candy in front of the store as well, because you'd set it up on a nice little wooden platform or something like that. And with these particular tents, you could have the space to, if it's nasty weather out, you roll all the windows and doors down and it's nice and cozy out there. But if it's a beautiful day, and we make these with screened windows and doors all the way around, you can roll up all those walls, and it would be a kind of like a veranda outside. And
nice.
It's a beautiful space. Yeah.
So, weddings too. Like
weddings.
If you think about weddings and all the special events, weddings have changed, especially over COVID. We, visited a lot of bed and breakfasts across the country, and suddenly the bed and breakfasts were suddenly becoming wedding venues, and for elopements was a huge deal too. And it's not going away because of things like Zoom, where people can Zoom the wedding and have 10 to 12. I think it goes up to 12. I don't want to get anybody in trouble or anything, but it's up to 12 people. And with these kind of tents, you can sit there and say, okay, we can have a garden wedding, and here it is. You've got your indoor, outdoor for whatever you need. I see down the road this also being. I mean, have you done like event spaces for weddings, like on resorts?
We have done a few. It usually doesn't work out, because typically in a wedding setting, they're looking for like a rental tent, basically, come in and set up and then remove. But in a situation where it's a grounds where they do weddings regularly, and you'd have like maybe a permanent, that's a situation where it would work, and I think it would work wonderfully, actually. I mean, especially it's such a a romantic atmosphere in a structure like that. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of people get married in parks, in national parks,
right.
and national forests. And, it's like, okay, here it is in case you need it, so at least you have that same feeling for, what you want to do. But my gosh, this is so cool. How exciting. What a cool, life to go around and, set up these awesome tents and for around the world, What do you see this getting bigger and bigger with other people around the world as you, continue on?
Absolutely, especially lately, and in the United States here, it's getting pretty busy, but I totally see it taking off, and our orders are reflecting that, and people's interest is just growing a lot lately, more than we've ever experienced. So awesome. It's taking off, and a lot of Are also, believe it or not, people are setting, I mean, we do service the resort industry a lot. The resort industry loves our tents. And people are starting to do like little Airbnbs as well. They'll order up a tent and set up a very unique little Airbnb with it, especially if they've got a beautiful piece of land or something. You know, it really makes for
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Hip
You know,
camp.
It would be cool for like artists. Yeah, when I used to teach art, we would find places sort of like that, and you'd have maybe 10 students and in a wilderness area, and you could stay in the tent, and then in daytime all paint outside. It's cool.
Yeah. You never forget that experience, right?
No.
Yeah,
Now I'm wanting margaritas again.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what's in my cup.
A little
But
bottle and brush.
yeah,
Yes.
there it is, the turpentine if you get desperate. No, but you know, and it's interesting, you know, with the growth of this and the glamping, you know, that's a big deal in the resorts, like you're talking about. An Airbnb has really changed, and so is hip camp. I'm seeing hip camp becoming really another big contender, especially for people who have land, and it's become a big deal, especially at farms, vineyards. And this could also be utilized for RV parks that want to have, you know, even a clubhouse setting, right? Because you could have a kitchen in there.
Ooh,
Here's your
that could make
clubhouse.
a good tasting room for a
Yeah.
vineyard.
Well, people are doing these wagons now, and I'm like,
Mm.
we've been in some of those wagons, and they are pretty cool on some of the, you know, resorts and stuff, and they're pretty cool. But I'm in for the tent too. I think that's that experience, especially if you're in a nature setting like the woods, and it's cool. But the hip camp thing, you know, this is something that, you know, small farmers are really needing. I mean, I won't get into the big ag versus small agriculture, I'll get in trouble. But for the small farmers to have a piece of land that they can make a profit off of, that is lighthearted, and people want the farm experience, and people need the farm experience because a lot of our families don't know where their food comes from. So it's kind of a, no, it is really,
It's true.
agritourism is a very huge growing thing, especially with vineyards and just places where if you have a flower farm, or it could just be apples or whatever it is, for that farm setting. You know, we see wineries going into the Airbnb industry, but how cool is it to be out in a vineyard, and just, you know, you're away from the people, but you can see the wine. We've stayed in Airbnbs on wineries, and there's nothing like, at the end of the day, sitting down and watching the sunset over a vineyard, and you're staying there. I mean, you can roll out to the vineyard. No, they won't let you, but you can watch these views. Remember in Northwest Colorado, we were looking at Mount Garfield, and it was just this amazing experience. And the reality, the Airbnb was cute and nice, but once you're out, you didn't want to go back in. So that's what I love about the tent thing, is you are living outside, but if you want to zip up, you can. If you're worried about mosquitoes, you have mosquito net things. Come on, we all know about them from Africa, you know. So there's all these things you can do, but I see the hip camp thing and those smaller entities being able to really make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that a lot too about, you know, setting up on farm plots and things like that. I mean, that's something we hear a lot of too, and people do it.
Yeah, cool.
Little air for that, and people love it. They absolutely do.
Yeah, awesome. So everyone, exclusivetents.com. You're on Facebook, right? I've been following your videos on there.
Yep, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on.
Oh, cool.
We
Twitter.
have a YouTube. Yeah, and we have a YouTube channel, like where you saw that video. But yeah, we have a YouTube channel that's got a lot of education, and we even document some of our travels to visit some of our clients, so you can get to know our clientele better as well and see what they've done with an exclusive tent, and it's pretty spectacular.
Awesome. Oh, we're gonna have to go watch those videos. You know, dig that.
Yeah.
All right. So you're off to Texas. Well, have fun in the big Lone Star State, and yeah, travel safe. Texas is beautiful, man. There's a lot going on there too.
There's, especially with the tents, it's a hot spot right now. It really is. So it's gorgeous out there. It's like a little Africa out there in some parts of it.
We were just out in the hill country, Bandera County, which is cowboy country. And we were just like, this is so South African, especially in the area where you come from, that northern, you know, I was going to say, Nancy, where we always talk about it, north of Kruger. It's out of my head.
Transvaal.
At the Transvaal. It all changes, you know, but oh man,
You talk
Tabazimbi.
about
Tabazimbi.
Tabazimbi.
Yeah, that just that, you know, red rock formation kind of thing. But
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys for having me on here. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
You too.